Hi everyone, it's Paris here from Analyzer. Seems like it's been years since I've spoken to you guys. As my title suggests, I'll get right into it. Are you confused, frustrated, pissed off with everything that's going on in the world? Now, there's a lot of you that by nature are hypochondriacs and are pissed off and frustrated and stressed with everything by nature. That's something that you can clean through the brain, right? You just detox the brain and you can sort all that out. But there's a lot of us, and I'd say there's millions of us, who can see, not just with our eyes, but also with our intuition, who can see what is going on in the world. And the world always changes, right? It hasn't always been like this. I mean, if you look at the history of how the world's been, I'd say that today we have more freedom and more better quality lifestyle and more options than we ever had in our life ever, right? In the life that we know. So, if you don't like someone, you don't friend them. If you don't like a job, you find another job. If you don't like the suburb you're in, you change. We can change. We've got those options. We've got the capability to do that. So it's not like it was years ago when people couldn't do these things because they were too poor or they were controlled from the monarchs. I'm against the monarchs, by the way. There shouldn't be any royal families on this planet taking money from people and controlling and telling them what to do. But that's another topic. So if you're frustrated with what's going on around you, let me tell you what I'm experiencing. And I'm wondering if you're experiencing them too, because I listen to the radio, different radio stations, all day, every day, from early morning till late. I look at the online media, I look at the TV media, I look at everything that's going around. I'm seeing that Aboriginal kids in the Northern Territory are causing mayhem, and yet the law is doing nothing about it, right? The law is doing nothing about it. I see white Australians causing mayhem in Victoria, in Australia, and the governments are doing nothing about it. I wake up this morning and I see in Queensland this couple who were crying on Channel 9 because their son got killed from kids who stole a car, and nothing's been done to these criminals because they are criminals. So there is absolute nothing going on in the justice system in Australia. I'm not speaking for other countries, in Australia, for when people are getting traumatised from deaths, from illnesses and all that. Then I'm hearing a retired GP. I mean, if I had time, I'd be on the radio all day complaining to the DJs, right, to the presenters. I'm hearing a retired GP who says, paraphrasing, it's okay if young kids vape because they're just trying it out. Right. Do you remember in the early 1900s when doctors did magazine commercials, advertisements, I should say, where they were smoking and saying it's safe to smoke? And like 50 years later, 80, 100 years later, we now know that smoking kills the body, kills the brain, kills everything. And then if you've been smoking and then you have babies, it all gets transferred to your babies unless you do a most major detox to get it completely out of your body. Right, so now this retired GP on 3AW radio said that, kids are just experimenting with the vaping, so it's not so bad for them. I'm thinking, does anyone get bothered by that, or is it only me? I mean, like, it's 2023. We have so much research and so much information at our fingertips on the internet. Right? We used to have the Encyclopedia Britannica that used to have a lot of this information growing up before the internet came along. We used to have all this information. I mean, we know that smoking is a killer. We know that eating heavy foods like meats and other things, they put a lot of pressure on the liver, on our livers, on our dogs' livers, on our cats' livers, on all animals' livers. Right? We know that anything that puts pressure on the liver, on the kidneys, on our heart, is not good for us. So why are people still consuming, still smoking? We know that drugs, as soon as I put up posts that marijuana is bad for you, all the brainwashed and all the idiots, I'm sorry, I call you idiots, I had illnesses and the marijuana got rid of it. No, marijuana numbs your pain. Drugs and medications numb your pain. They numb the illnesses. They do not get rid of diseases. Marijuana does not get rid of diseases. right? Drugs and pharmaceuticals do not get rid of diseases. It does not say anywhere. And in most pharmaceuticals, it says, look at the side effects. Where are people's brains? Where are people's brains? I mean, when you get a car, you look at the manual, you go through the manual to know what features you have in the car. When you're getting pharmaceuticals, do you read the little booklet? When you're getting drugs, you are numbing your pain. The disease is still there. Marijuana, cannabis does not get rid of any diseases. It stuffs the brain. And how do I know that as a fact? One, because I've experienced it in my family and I've seen what it's done in the family unit. What it's done to the people who've taken the marijuana and the cocaine and all the other drugs and what it's done to them, right? In relatives, I've seen what's happened. Two, there is so much information out there that tells you about drugs. It is common sense. Do you understand that when you consume something and it negatively alters the brain and negatively alters how the body functions, how can that be good for us when it does it negatively? Negatively, because our brain and our heart thinks from our soul. That's where you get information from, your soul. Your soul connects to somewhere in the universe, right? And hopefully to somewhere good in the universe. But when you're consuming all this alcohol and caffeine, and there's caffeine in green teas, and there's caffeine in chocolates, and there's caffeine in a lot of foods, right? It's not just coffee. When you're consuming these and they're killing off the neurons in the brain and killing off the liver and killing off so many issues in the body, how can that be good for you? And the thing is that people that are consuming all these toxins, they can't think clear, because you can't think clear. When your brain is so toxic and has been poisoned from so many things, you're not thinking clear. Do you know what polyethylene is? Right, so I've been looking for plant liners for vegetable boxes. I've been looking for over 3-4 weeks since Philip made them. You saw the video. Now, polyethylene, if it seeps, Google it, polyethylene. When it seeps, through soil or anything, it is poison, it is toxic. And yet they call it food grade, this plastic. And they use it for vegetable gardens, and they use it for for foods and all that. How can polyethylene be food grade when it says clearly, you just Google it, clearly. You don't even need to go to scientific papers. And it says clearly that it is toxic if it seeps. Where is people's common sense? Where is the common sense? The Australian Greens Party, who I call the Alien Party, that's why they call themselves Greens, they certainly don't give a shit about nature, and they don't give a shit about animals because they're not doing anything about that. They want to allow pregnant women in Australia to be able to go to these, in Australia, I don't know how it is in other countries, in Australia, our very ethical and moral governments have set up drug centres where people can shoot up safely. So instead of setting up centres to help people detox and not take drugs, in my opinion, in my personal and professional opinion, this is like they are pushing drugs. They're allowing drug use in a safe environment. What a load of shit. So now the Greens want to allow children and pregnant mothers to be able to go to these drug centres. I mean, does that bother anyone? Shouldn't we have a system, shouldn't we have a society where mothers who have been on drugs or are on drugs not be allowed to have children? I'm not saying to abort them, but let me tell you something. Has anyone out here, because I can't look at you guys much, I've got to look on the road, right? We have very strict road rules for proper reasons, and we should, because people are using phones and texting and shit I see it all the time on the roads, and that is wrong. Has anyone here seen a baby on withdrawal, on drug withdrawal? Do you know how many babies there are in Australia? I'll speak for Australia, let alone the rest of the world. It's just as bad. When the parents have been on drugs, are on drugs, any drugs, marijuana, heroin, cocaine, anything at all, MDMA, or all these drugs, and then they have babies, because that's how dumbass their brains are, these women. That's how dumbasses they are, because I do blame women. Unless you've been raped, it's a different story, okay? They have their babies, and these babies come out suffering from narcotics, and no one is worried about this, and no one is saying anything about this. I don't care about the mothers, because they were dumbasses in the first place to continue to take the drugs. But when you're on drugs from a baby or from a child, because your parents have given you these drugs, it's not your fault, right? There's different types of drug users. There's ones who were forced from babies, and it's just in their system, and there's no help in the society from anyone for them to help get off it. The Australian Greens Party, who were meant to be focusing on nature and animals, of course they still eat animals. They're really a bullshit party for the Labor Party. You know that, it's a preference, just like the Animal Justice Party. They do nothing for animals. Nothing is done for animals. They are just an independent, preferential party for the Labor Party. They're a union party. That's all they are. Nothing's moving forward. And the title of my video here was, Are You Frustrated, Feeling Isolated? Because a lot of us, including myself, I'm walking around swearing. You're lucky you're not my neighbour. And I'm thinking, what the fuck is going on around here? People are thinking all this stuff, are vocalising it on the radio and on TV and all that, but the governments, I call them all aliens, because aliens have bad aliens, they have no souls. Well, aliens, bad, no souls, right? They have no souls. I mean, there is nothing, the governments, from what I'm seeing across the world too, America, USA, I mean, America has got a president who has worse than dementia. I mean, we saw it years ago when he was elected. Worse than dementia, and people are still accepting it. Because when your brain is numb and you can't think clear, you can't see anything wrong with anything. And people are just going on, they're saying that interstate travel has dropped a bit, but the bookings for overseas travel has increased a lot. Right? So people are just focusing on their holidays, their nail salons, their hair salons, their Gucci bags, their designer bags, their cars. They don't give a shit about the environment around them. And why? Because there's zero empathy. There is zero empathy out there. Zero empathy. Another thing that's pissed me off about the media, and I know I'm not the only one. The other thing that's pissed me off about the media is that every time someone dies, they write in the media, such and such suddenly died. No, you dumbasses, you stupid effing journos. People don't suddenly die, just like that jock or whatever, that chef. You just punch in someone's name and you put the word drugs or illness. He was a heroin addict from 15. Heavy heroin addict. Addict is heavy, right? This stays in your body, stunts your growth, it stunts your brain. The brain keeps developing up until 28 years old at least. So when you're doing drugs, alcohol, marijuana and all that shit, under 28 years old, you're finished. And I've been saying in my posts that are all shadow banned, I've been saying that my generation parents in their 50s will be seeing their children die first. Why? Because you stupid parents of my generation have allowed your children to consume so much junk food, all that junk shit out there, all those Uber foods that, all that junk food, still eating meat when we know, and the hospitals have told me, and we know that meat is too heavy for the liver. Drinking, you're still drinking alcohol, you're doing all this vaping, you're doing all this shit. The body is not a robot, it's not a machine. Even a vacuum cleaner only lasts 1 year now. And you got to keep buying. What I'm trying to say through this topic in a few words is that you're not the only one who's frustrated and confused. The world's gone to the shithouse, right? They don't know. Nothing is working right. Everything is illogical. Absolutely everything is illogical. Our governments, to me, in my opinion, are not human. They're not human. And I've explained many times, there are humans with no souls or with corrupted souls. Right? So when you're drinking, drugging, eating bad, your aura weakens, your body weakens. This is when entities are able to influence your thinking, your actions and whatever. I mean, who is going to come out on this planet and say what is really going on? No one is saying what's really going on. A lot of us know what's going on. This transgender bullshit. I don't care what people say to me and whatever. You're a male, you're a female. When I see boys or men, parents allowing their children to change sexes, this new age thing, when I was in full on in the new age stuff, saying that, oh, you know, in your previous life you were a male and that's why you want to be a male in this life, that is all bullshit. That is all lies. That is all lies. And another big lie from the new age sector is that if something bad happens to you now, happens to me now, it's not because I did something bad in a previous life. It's because I was in a bad place, bad time, or bad choices. If I have a husband who hits me or whatever, and I stayed 20 years, it was my choice for staying there for 20 years. Right? It's got nothing to do with this bullshit new age karma. It's the choices we make, friends. It's the choices we make. Do you understand that? There's a lady that's just released a book now, the little girl in the tunnel or something. We're in the island where the Irish Catholic nuns and priests were abusing and sexually abusing little children and hiding them in the tunnels. And at the end of her interview, she says that her healer said to her that, you know, that she was chosen. She was meant to go through that experience because, you know, she was meant to expose to the world what the Catholic Church was doing, plus the rest. That is bullshit. We go through what we go in life because of the choices we make. The choices. If I married a multi-billionaire or millionaire, I'd be living a different life. It's a different choice I'd be making to what I'm living now. You know, if I was living in the Bahamas, I'd be living a different life to what I'm living now. Do you understand? It's the choices we make. So we've got to stop complaining, stop whinging, especially those who are always complaining, always whinging. Make the right choices in your life to live the life as much as you can. And really, a life is not about just holidays and all that shit. It's not. It's about making this earth a better planet because it is finished. When they are changing sexes, when they are changing genders, when they're forcing them in school, indoctrinating children and not allowing parents to have a say. Since when are we not allowed to have a say for our children? Except, of course, when we abuse them and whatever. Right? And even then, do you know how many foster kids in Australia are getting sexually abused and abused? Most people become foster parents because of the good money they get from the government. I mean, please, 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 I've been saying this for years. Please listen to the radio. Please listen to TV. I'm not saying all day. I'm not saying to believe what the journos are saying or whatever. But there's a lot of stuff that is happening. Like the crimes are horrible in Victoria, all over Australia. Right? There's no justice for victims. These are facts. These are facts. You've got to be listening to these facts so that you know what's going on around you. Because one day when something happens to you, no one's going to be there to help you because you've allowed the situation to happen. I mean, is anyone else worried about this stuff, or is it just me and the few people that complain on the radio? Is anyone else worried about what's happening? When they can take a dog that bites someone and just euthanize it, it's not the dog's fault. It's the owner's fault for not training the dogs. The owners should be fined. Why would you euthanize an animal? The animal hasn't been trained. Doesn't know what's right or wrong. So children need to be taught what's right and wrong. And the schools are now taking control and saying how kids should be. I used to accept trans and all that when I was watching it on Bold and Beautiful and that. Not anymore because I've realised what the what their agenda was. You see, on other planets, they're agendaless beings, but they're not good. They're not good beings. And I was watching a Dr. Phil episode the other day in the morning when I have my shower, and I've got 10 TVs, so I had the TV on near the shower, and he had a transgender guy with long nails and dressed like a woman and all that. I'm thinking, you're worse than a clown. I mean, this isn't right. Why aren't people saying what they're really thinking? You know, all the hormones in chickens, all the hormones in foods. What do you think that does? That alters our hormones. And I know there's going to be a lot of haters and people saying things because their brains aren't clear. There's a male and a female. There's a male and a female. Even angels are males and females. Even angels that are higher beings. higher beings from the good part of the universe, because there's a bad part of the universe. The bad part of the universe has got the genderless beings. Why isn't anyone saying anything? Anyway, we're Mercury in retrograde at the moment. It's going to go till the end of May. All the shit-house decisions that governments make and all that, they all do it during Mercury in retrograde. Why? Because we are not thinking clear. I see it in myself. And it's not just the Mercury in retrograde that causes us not to think clear. All the bacteria, the viruses and everything that circulate, all these things, we have them in our hair, on our skin, it goes through our pores, on our clothes, on our bags, on our cars, it goes everywhere. No one is immune from what is out there in the air. And I'm not even talking about the sprays in the skies that I can see in front of me, weird sprays. I'm talking about everything that circulates in the air. Do you understand? It goes everywhere. You can't just duck for cover and say, oh, I'm not going to get that. I'm not going to get that virus. We all have it. And what they've done with these viruses that they are making, whoever is making, and we know who's making them, right? Well, we've got labs that make them. Australia has labs. The whole world has got labs that make them. It's not just Spain and those countries, Moderna, that makes them. We're all making them. If you look it up, you'll see we're making them. All these viruses alter our brain, alter our logic, alter our common sense. They're making us have zero complacent, zero empathy. People do not have logic. I see it in friends. I see it in myself. I see it in everyone around me. They don't have the balls to stick up and speak out and for our human rights. There is no one on this planet that is speaking up for our human rights. Not one group, not one person, no one. They're all frauds, or the other ones. They're all distractions. Not one person. So some of you may say, well, how do I get through? I feel isolated or frustrated. There's only one thing you can do. You're going to play it safe, right, with your money. Don't go investing in all this crypto bullshit. Right, be very careful if you invest in shares and stuff, because they're going up and down. And they're all long-term anyway. Everything is long-term, 10, 20, 30 years. Right, you got to choose your friends, because you don't want people taking you down. You don't want toxic people around you, because if they've got toxic entities and energies around you, they're just going to spread them to you. Get rid of people in your life that are affecting you. And I know that everyone says it, but it's really the only way. If you don't like your job, there are millions of jobs out there you can apply for. Don't work somewhere where it's toxic. Work somewhere else. Educate yourself. There is so much education, free education, paid education, it's cheap. Educate yourself for a skill. There are so many jobs, they're desperate for jobs. And this is why Australia is going to be bringing thousands and thousands, if not millions, of people from overseas. Because Australians don't want to work. There is no excuse that you can't work. There are so many jobs. If you don't want to work and you're complaining about money, it's because, well, you're too lazy to work. It's that simple. There are so many jobs. It's like it was in the 50s. That you can chop and change every day. You can have 10 jobs in one day. Everyone I speak to, and I deal with hundreds of businesses a day, in the line of work that I am and the projects that I do, they don't have staff. They don't have staff. So there's no excuses, there's no jobs. So try and just limit the toxic people in your environment, because it's the people. It's the people in our environment that are toxic, that are causing all the stress. Be on top of everything. And the other thing is, never rely on anyone. Do not rely on your parents, do not rely on your kids, do not rely on your husband, your wife, do not rely on anyone, because they may not be thinking clear either. So you've got to eat well, drink well, drop the caffeine, drop the drugs, drop all this shit if you really want changes in your life. If you really want change, if you don't want a better change in your life, then stop whinging and you're going to suffer the consequences. Watch how many people will be dying under 50. The parents are allowing them to have drunk food, like I said, the drinking, the vaping, the smoking, all that. There's something wrong when parents are allowing their kids or stepkids to consume this stuff. That means that my generation is so effed in the head, it's not funny. It's not funny. How can I see through it? And how can other people see through it? If I can see it, if I can see through things, you can see through things too. Okay, you can see through things, and I don't eat perfect, and I don't eat whatever. But, I'm plant-based, I don't have any alcohol, I don't have any coffee anymore. If I have a bit of chocolate, my head just spins. And I experiment. My head just spins. Anyway, I'm here at the pound. I've come to get more rescues. So I've got to let you guys go. I've just stopped the car and speak to you later. Bye, everyone. Bye.